You need winners? Let the Football Insiders show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the sports betting industry. Together, they are the Football Insiders, your number one source for football winners.
Week 13 certainly was not unlucky from a gambling perspective because most gamblers always gravitate toward the favorites, and the Chalks went 10-5 versus the spread last week, with 8 of those favorites winning by double-digit margins. But as I always say, guys, everything is cyclical when it comes to gambling. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here, and joining me, as he has each and every weekend for the past 10 years, Steve Budin, Miami, and this is the Countdown to Kickoff, and we are the Football Insiders, and this is the only show to break down your top NFL games from a point spread perspective. And guys, in honor of Cam Newton, I am going to bar Steve from participating in the analysis for our first game on Pittsburgh and Buffalo because he is not wearing a tie, and that is in direct violation of the Countdown to Kickoff pregame show rules. Wow. But Steve, in all seriousness, hey, listen, this is a tough show. You know,
yes, it is.
This is all about a team sport here, Steve. You got to play by the rules. But anyway, we will continue. Hey, listen, Buffalo hosting Pittsburgh. Last week on the show, let me just rub a little salt in the wound. I told you the Bills would go down at Oakland. Of course, the Raiders had to score like 147 straight points to get me the cover because Oakland was my best bet last Sunday. But all we care about is the final score and the final margin, and the Raiders got the cover, and Rexy lost once again. Pittsburgh, meanwhile, got the job done at home against New York, a dominating defensive effort against a one-dimensional Giants team, and Pittsburgh is on a nice little roll. And now we have the Steelers, a 2.5-point favorite. They have not been a very good road favorite over the years, but Steve, I got to tell you something. I like the way Pittsburgh is playing right now, especially Ben, especially Le'Veon Bell, and especially since the Steelers are the healthiest they have been all season long.
Oh, no doubt, Al. I mean, this is what December football is all about in the NFL. It's all about playoff implications, and these are must-win scenarios for both of these teams here. I mean, the Buffalo crowd should help the Bills a little bit, but let's face it, this time of the year, you go with the proven veteran, the proven horse, and that's Big Ben. Tyrod Taylor, he can be exciting at times, but he proved it last week. He just can't come up with the big play. Steelers team, they should be brought to you by Rolex, Al, because let me tell you something. They're ticking just at the right time. 3 straight wins and covers. They appear to be hitting their stride. Looks like another big playoff run for Big Ben. I'm taking Big Ben here. He should get the win and the cover.
Now, I will point out, as I mentioned earlier, the Steelers just 8-13 against the spread, their last 21 as a road favorite, and those last 2 covers coming at Cleveland, a Browns team that they've owned over the years, and let's face it, the Browns suck. And against Indianapolis on that Thursday night game on Thanksgiving, a night that I took the Steelers because the Colts were without Andrew Luck. But again, they played a really good game against a Giants team that had won 6 straight. In fact, they held the Giants to just 234 total yards in that game, and they dominated the clock, which I think is so important. 34 minutes to time of possession. And, you know, they won that game despite nearly shooting themselves in the foot one too many times. 12 penalties, 115 yards in that game. But Le'Veon Bell, 35 touches in that game, ran the ball for 118 yards, had 6 catches as well. Now going to take on a Buffalo run defense that I pointed out in last week's show is not that good. And that's been a theme throughout this season. You know, I pointed last week in the show that I said that remember what happened to the Bills when they went to Miami and got upset by the Dolphins when Jay Ajayi and Miami ran for well over 200 yards against them. And you saw how the Raiders, with their offensive line, opened up plenty of holes. And Derek Carr was able to be successful as well. And Steve, you noted something else. December football. You know, you ride the guys that brought you to the dance. And that's Roethlisberger and that's Bell. And I think with that 1-2 punch versus the 1-2 punch of the Bills with Shady McCoy, okay, I'm happy with him. But Tyrod Taylor, I'm sorry. That's where you lose that 1-2 matchup, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and take the Steelers minus the 2.5 to 3 points. And again, if this line goes to 3 or 3.5, you absolutely have to buy down the half point in insurance. Next game, I think, is one of the most difficult ones on the card. Tampa Bay, winners of 4 in a row, going back home to take on New Orleans. The Buccaneers coming off the road upset, falling behind 21-7 early at San Diego, but then coming on strong and beating San Diego on the road. At home, they have not been a very good team. But then again, how about New Orleans? Yes, they're on a 7-2 ATS run, but the Saints have lost 3 of their last 4. They laid a big-time egg last week at home against Detroit. But, Steve, this is a very tough game for me to look at because I don't know if the Buccaneers are for real.
Yeah, I mean, most gamblers are having that problem out. It's an interesting matchup. I mean, these two square off for the first time this season. Jameis Winston, second year, 22 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Al, he's my Viagra player of the year. He's rock solid. He's way more confident, too. It's going to be a tough task for Tampa Bay. There are few quarterbacks in the league more reliable than Drew Brees. 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Brees was coasting all year long till he hit the wall last week, 3 interceptions in the loss. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, they're making believers out of me week after week. They've won 4 straight. They've become a real contender in the NFC playoff picture. New Orleans, though, they've actually won 5 in a row against the spread on the road, Al. And once again, for me, it's about going with the veteran quarterback at this time of the year, Drew Brees. Besides, Saints 6-0 against the spread as an underdog. So give me the points here and the Saints.
You know, it's a strange thing. Every year you'll come across a couple of teams where you find some statistical anomalies and there's absolutely no explanation. I mean, the Buccaneers, a young team, a second-year quarterback, 5-1 straight up on the road, 2-4 straight up at home. Go figure. And this is a Buccaneers team that's 3-6 against the spread, their last 9 at home, dating back to last year. But their last home game, they upset the Seattle Seahawks 14-5, and you've seen what the Seahawks 4-1 their last 5 games, scoring a bunch of points, except that one loss to Tampa Bay. Go figure again. One thing I've always maintained, that as a handicapper, as a gambler, more importantly, there are some games that you just don't bet. And there are some games that you look at and you can study it and you can argue that each game is a 50-50 betting proposition and somebody's going to cover and somebody won't. But sometimes you just can't do anything more than flip a coin. And in those situations, you're better off just taking a pass. And that's what I'm going to do in this game because there are many better betting propositions on the board, including this next game, Washington taking on Philadelphia. Listen, the Redskins, after the loss to Arizona, their second straight, which knocked them ironically out of the playoff picture and elevated Tampa into the 6th and final playoff spot at this stage of the season in the NFC. After that loss to Arizona this past week, Jay Gruden just split into his team in the locker room, and everybody knew it, and Gruden didn't take any prisoners after that loss. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, after the 3-0 start, everybody thought the Eagles, hey, this was going to be the year. Carson Wentz was going to be the guy. People forgot. Carson Wentz is a rookie. And people also seemingly forgot, especially Philadelphia fans who, let's face it, I've been a Philadelphia fan all my life, sometimes fair weather fans, and they realize or forgot to realize that this is going to be a rebuilding year. The Eagles, after their no-show against Cincinnati, their head coach, Doug Peterson, said that there were some guys who simply didn't give a max effort. Interesting contest here in Philadelphia. I've got my take. I'm going to get yours first, though.
The last time these two teams met, Al, was 8 weeks ago, and Carson Wentz was put on the paleo diet. Raw dirt and grass. He was sacked 5 times, and Philly was held to just 239 total yards. Now, 8 weeks later, playoff implications. To me, two teams that seem to be headed in 2 different directions. Washington, 6-5-1, trying to earn a postseason spot, while Philly at 5-7, 5 losses, Al, in their last 6 games. To me, Al, they're a sinking ship. My dad was a naval veteran officer. He used to always tell me, there is no honor in sinking with the ship. Carson Wentz, he's fading fast, Al. If he was a racehorse, they just shoot him. 3 interceptions last week, 12 touchdowns versus 11 interceptions on the season. Gamblers, quick to point out that Philly is strong at home. Eagles 4-1 straight up at the link. But not this gambler. I like the fluid offense from the Redskins. I think Washington gets the money in this one.
Listen, there is nothing wrong with the Redskins as far as I'm concerned. Losing at Arizona to a Cardinals team that was in a desperate must-win situation and playing their hearts out at Dallas and falling to the Cowboys. Now they're going down in class. And this is a Philadelphia team that, let's remember, their offensive line is in shambles. It started when Lane Johnson, their best offensive lineman, their starting right tackle, was suspended for 10 games with the PED violation. They've had to constantly shift their personnel. They've got probably the weakest wide receiver core in the NFL. And even though their top wide receiver is back this week, and even though Ryan Matthews, their top running back, is back this week, it doesn't make a difference. Their pass rush, they couldn't even get a hand on Andy Dalton this week at Cincinnati. The pass rush has been non-existent for 6 games. The secondary, Kirk Cousins is going to light them up just like he did in the first go-round. And in the first meeting, the Redskins just ran through them. And that was before Rob Kelly really established himself as the Redskins' #1 running back. I think this is a joke. I think the Redskins, people have looked at this result of what happened to the Redskins against Dallas, against Arizona, 2 road games where Washington was playing superior opponents, and suddenly they're making the Redskins practically a pick-em. Redskins should be laying 4.5 in this game. Guys, this is a joke. Redskins are going to destroy Philadelphia in this game, so take the Eagles. Can't bet Tampa Bay, New Orleans? Tell you what, bet Washington, don't look back. Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for part 2 of this week's Countdown to Kickoff show. 4.5 years ago, I created the Charity Play of the Week program, and in that time, you and I have created a community of caregivers and have combined to contribute well over $350,000 to people in times of need. For those of you that have joined me, my thanks. For those of you that are not aware of the Charity Play of the Week program, let me just remind you, once a week, I give one of the top plays from one of the handicappers away here at the site for free, no strings attached. If it wins, then on a quid pro quo basis, I ask you to make a donation to a charity recipient that I choose on a weekly basis. I don't care if it's $1, $5, or $50. You don't have to put in the $250 that I do each time it wins, but I ask you to participate. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Why? Because it creates positive karma. And you and I both know in this thing we do called gambling, we can never have enough positive karma. Again, I give you the play for free, and if it wins, I then ask you to make a contribution. It's done on the honor system, guys. And again, over the past 4.5 years, this community of caregivers has contributed well over $350,000. So, it's usually on Tuesday or Wednesday on the site. Check it out. You'll see one of the feature plays from one of the handicappers given away for free, no strings attached. It's the Charity Play of the Week program, and I hope you become a member of one of the most important things that you'll ever come across in gambling. Nobody's ever done it. I created it, and it's definitely something that will produce some positive karma in your life and benefit others in a time of need. Let's kick off the second half of this week's Countdown to Kickoff show with the Seattle game at Green Bay. Seahawks rebounding quite nicely after that 14-5 loss at Tampa Bay the week prior that snapped their 3-game winning streak by hammering the Carolina Panthers at home 40-7, taking on a Green Bay squad given up for dead a couple of weeks ago, but then they pulled the Monday night upset of Philadelphia on the road, and then in the snow they take care of business at home against the Houston Texans, but then again, Texans on the road in the snow. Geez, could you ask for a better scenario? And Green Bay gets the job done. Aaron Rodgers, not a great game, but listen, he was playing with an injured hamstring. I think this is an interesting contest because Seattle is the slight favorite in this game. Another one of those contests, I believe, that is very hard to handicap. Green Bay beat them at home last year. Steve, Russell Wilson is playing well, but again, this offensive line that the Seahawks have put together, it's cheap, meaning they didn't spend any money putting it together. It has not afforded him a lot of protection this year, and the Packers, I'm sure, are going to come at him with all guns blazing.
Yeah, well, the Packers would like to think that they're picking up steam, and they look for 3 in a row here as they host Seattle. Seahawks went through the Panthers last week like Grant went through Richmond. Al, they beat them 40-7, while the Packers beat the Texans 21-14. I think way too much emphasis is being put on the fact that the Packers beat Houston. I mean, because to me, Al, Houston is complete garbage. So the win was non-convincing at best to me. Gamblers remember the Packers beating the Seahawks 27-17 early last season. You mentioned it. But that, too, is a non-factor for me, as this is a whole new year. I mean, most gamblers were ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater in Seattle, especially after scoring only 5 points in Week 12 against Tampa Bay. But then Russell the Hustle Wilson lit up the Carolina defense like a Christmas tree, putting up 40 on a respectable Panther defense. And just as impressive as usual was the stingy Seattle defense. I mean, they make Ebenezer Scrooge look like Mother Teresa. They give up 16 points a game, Al. That's good for the number 1 ranking in the NFL, and that's going to be a tall order for a Packer team that just squeaked by Houston. I mean, I see this as a much lower scoring game than advertised. This 46.5 point total is representative of a public that sees 2 top NFL quarterbacks and just disregards the fact that Seattle's the best defense in the NFL, and Green Bay is no slouch on the defensive side of the ball as well. You add some cold weather to the mix, and this game could go way under the posted total. In fact, I'm going under here, Al, under 46.5.
Yeah, I can certainly see this under. I mean, this has the earmarks of a 21-17 final. And I like Seattle in this game as well, Steve. I'll tell you what, I think Seattle can win this game. You know, I don't expect it to be a high-scoring game, but the Seahawks showed you that that was just one of those things, that 14-5 loss at Tampa. I think they were a road-weary team, and the Bucs just happened to catch them at the right spot. They had scored 88 points in their 3 prior games before being held to 5 at Tampa. Then they rung up 40 at home against Carolina. This offense is moving. Thomas Rawls, 15 carries, 106 yards to once again resuscitate the ground game, and that's going to be crucial at Green Bay, especially in the cold weather on the frozen turf. The other thing is Green Bay's secondary sucks, okay? Yeah. Brock Osweiler even had a good game against them. Carson Wentz, when given time, even though he had no wide receivers, because remember, his number 1 wide receiver went down, his number 2 wide receiver was benched because he had some mental issues, Aguilar, coming into that game, that Monday night game the week prior, so he was throwing to a couple of free agent guys that probably won't be in the league next year by the end of that game, and yet the Eagles had been moving the ball through the air. This Packers secondary is extremely vulnerable. I think Wilson will have a good game. I do believe, like you said, the game stays under, and I think Seattle wins that contest as well. And also remember this, Seattle 19-4 straight up, 17-6 against the spread in regular season action the month of November going forward over the past 3 years. I'm sorry, guys. Those are money-making numbers when you break it down in Vegas. Next game, Atlanta, minus the points at Los Angeles. I warned you guys last week, and I warn you every single week when we talk about the Falcons laying points. You want to grab the points with the Falcons as a dog because they're 9-2 their last 11 as a puppy. But as a favorite, they showed you again last week why they are just a tough team to play as a chalk. Now 4-13 against the spread their last 17 when laying points. But even I will have to say, there's no way you play the LA Rams plus the points in this one.
Look, forget last week. It means nothing. Look at this game, Al. It's simple. Matt Ryan versus Jared Goff. I mean, is it really more complex than that? I don't think so. You don't talk salads when there's chicken parm on the table. Goff and the Rams have lost 3 straight at home. They've converted only 1 of 12 on 3rd down last week against New England and have just looked like complete crap at home, while the Falcons, I mean, they've proved to be solid on the road. They have wins in Oakland and in Denver already. I mean, Al, I went with Atlanta last week. I was wrong. I'm going to go with them here minus the wood. I think they flat out destroy this Ram team.
Listen, I used the Patriots on my daily video report last Sunday as one of my free picks, and I'm surprised they didn't win even bigger, considering they outgained the Rams 402 to 162 in total yards and had control of the ball for almost 37 minutes in that game. But you got a rookie quarterback, and I don't care if he's playing at home or he's playing on the road. The fact is, 3 starts he's completed 53.7% of his passes for 509 yards, and that's in 3 starts. And he's been sacked 8 times in those 3 starts. And you mentioned the third down conversions in last week's game, but here's a better stat for you. In 3 starts, the Rams are 4 for 33 on third downs.
Wow.
4 for 33. Listen, if you can't convert, you aren't going to extend any drives. You aren't going to get to the red zone. The Rams were bad on third downs with Case Keenum. They're even worse now with a rookie. Got to go with the Falcons. And listen, the Falcons have played great on the West Coast. You know, they went to Denver, pulled the upset of the Broncos, went to Oakland, pulled the upset of the Raiders, had an upset of Seattle right there within their grasp before losing by 2 points. They went to New Orleans earlier this year. They beat the Saints easily as well. So they have proven to be road warriors. So even though they're 4-13, their last 17 against the spread is a favorite, got to lay the points in this one. This is also a great opportunity in a 2-team teaser. This is one of those lines. I always look for favorites, whether on the road or at home. Favorites between 3 and 6 points to play in a 2-team teaser with standard 6-pointer. You can take the Falcons in a pick'em situation and ask yourself, are they going to lose this game? The answer is no. Perfect teaser opportunity. Final game. Dallas and the Giants. Listen, we don't have to set this one up like a soap opera. We know Cowboys have won 11 straight. They've covered 9 of those 11 games. The lone loss, 1 point season opener at home against the Giants when Eli Manning threw a late touchdown pass, his third of the game, to Victor Cruz. Cowboys coming off a little extra rest after barely getting by Minnesota, but they got by Minnesota on the road. Think they want a little revenge in this game?
I mean, I don't know what there is more that we can say about this Dallas team that we haven't said for the last 12 weeks, Al. They're in first place. They're going for their 12th win in a row. But silly gamblers with short-term memory syndrome, they remain skeptical because of the close call last week, the 17-15 road win over the Vikings last Thursday night. Revenge scenario, you asked? Yeah, hell yeah, it's a revenge scenario for the Cowboys. They lost to the Giants 2019 back in week 1. That was Dak Prescott's debut, but so much has happened since then, Al, and I expect him to do to Eli Manning exactly what he's done to Tony Romo, usher him right into an early retirement. Because it isn't just the Dallas offense alone, Al, that keeps showing up week after week. In fact, it was the Dallas defense last week that kept the game close enough for the Cowboys to eventually storm back in the fourth quarter and get the W. People also, they don't give enough credit to the Cowboy defense. They only allow 19 points a game. It's 5th in the NFL. The New York Giants, I mean, they saw their fake 6-game winning streak come to an end. It was a very revealing 24-14 road loss to the Steelers last week. Eli Manning, I don't know, Al. He looked like the poster boy for Geritol. 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 very costly interceptions in the red zone. It's time for shuffleboard, Eli. Trust me, it is over. In fact, the 35-year-old quarterback has thrown for less than 260 yards in his last 6 games, Al. The Giants' defense, they're among the worst in the NFL. They couldn't stop Pittsburgh. They won't be able to stop Dallas either. I think Dallas is actually a cheap chalk here. Gamblers, they still can't get used to considering the Cowboys a top 2 team in the NFL, but trust me, they are, and I'm going to gladly lay the points one more time with the Cowboys. Give me the boys minus the cheap chalk.
Well, you know, people and gamblers specifically look at that first result and listen, it was, the first week of the season. It was Prescott and Zeke Elliott's first start of their careers. 2 different teams that are playing now. You have a Cowboys team that are a bunch of seasoned veterans. These aren't rookies anymore. And you look at how the Steelers last week at home, veteran presence with Bell and Roethlisberger, how they moved the ball, 389 yards of total offense, and they held the Giants to 234. And the Steelers' defense isn't that good, and the Cowboys' defense is better. And the Steelers' offense, again, 2-pronged attack. Excellent set of wide receivers, strong tight end play. Gee, doesn't that sound like the Cowboys? Does to me. And the way the Cowboys have played so well on the road, going to Lambeau, beat the hell out of the Packers. Yeah, they struggled against Minnesota, but the Vikings have a great defense. The Giants don't have a great defense. And they came out a banged-up defense. Jason Pierre-Paul. I should have just said JPP and gotten it over with. Came out with a hamstring and groin injury and had to leave that game. So who knows what his status is as we record this show on a Tuesday, if he's going to play. He had 5.5 sacks in his last 6 or 7 games. He had been their best pass rusher here the second half of the season. So I think there's so many mitigating circumstances here, and the only way to play this is to go ahead and take Dallas. Again, you're looking at a 3 number. I'm absolutely buying down the half point. I'm taking the Cowboys, and I agree with you. They are a cheap chalk. And again, Giants, 4 for 11 on third downs last week, 0 for 3 on fourth down. And if you go and look at the Giants, or if you've watched any of these shows this season, I've repeatedly told you the Giants are one of the worst teams in third and fourth down situations the entire season. Why? They don't have a run game. So Eli is always finding himself 3rd and 8 or longer. That's not the way to move the chains. And that's why this Giants team just can't put a lot of points on the board, but the Cowboys will. Cheap chalk. Love the Cowboys in this one. Guys, that'll conclude this week's edition of the Countdown to Kickoff as the NFL season winds down. We've given you a lot of winners, I hope, on this show. Remember to catch my daily video report each and every day on the site. And Steve and I will catch you next week right here on the Football Insiders Countdown to Kickoff program.